Hey, just wanted to come on here and talk about some sculpting exercises I recently did in Zbrush. This isn't like a tutorial or anything like that, I'm just kind of documenting a little journey that I went on. I'm not a super technical artist or anything, so personally when I'm working, I think a lot about different artistic workflows and different ways of approaching things artistically. So this has been a great exercise in scratching that itch and just also helping me kind of turn off my brain. I think as artists, there's a tendency to be extremely precious with all the projects that you start and the things that you make. But what I realized from this is that like not everything needs to be super perfect or like this polished finished piece that's going to go in your portfolio. It can be really freeing to just like sculpt without thinking about anything. You just need to set very specific parameters and very specific goals beforehand, and then after that you can go crazy. I'm just grabbing random photos from Pinterest and using it as kind of inspiration and just sculpting from that. I'm trying to stay as close to the reference as possible, but just because it's one image, there's some kind of blanks that I'm having to fill in. It is a lot easier to sculpt or just make art in general when you're going into it with the mindset of like, I'm not going to color this. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be this or that. Today and for the rest of the week, all I'm working on are heads, and if I did that, then I'm successful. I guess what I'm saying is a lot of it is an exercise in kind of removing the barrier to entry and just making it as easy as possible to just get started and make cool stuff. Because at the end of the day, you're supposed to enjoy it. Like you're supposed to like it. If you don't like it, then I don't know what you're doing here. I think because I do this as my job, I don't always like it. So something like this has been great to remind myself why I started doing it in the first place. I really enjoyed sculpting this dude. I thought his reference photo was really cool and contrasted a lot with the first one. It's just kind of like a different character, it's got like a different vibe. Thought it was pretty cool. I was also feeling really good about this one all the way through, which is not the case for pretty much every single one after this. There's a bit of stylization in the approach here in general, which is like not exactly a conscious decision. It's just something that I kind of default to. Take that as you will. I think in this context that's fine, but if I were working on a project with maybe some different art direction, that is something to be conscious of, for sure. I think a lot of art making is battling with your conscious and unconscious self. Personally, with what limited free time I have, I would prefer to do the version of that that's more meditative. In that train of thought, it is kind of nice also not to have to think about things like topology, or the base mesh or whatever, and just like make things a little more naturally the way I would if I was like a traditional sculpture or something, where I'm kind of Frankensteining these body parts together out of different primitive shapes. It just feels a little more artistic that way. But yeah, like I said earlier, this guy was cool. I like how tactile he feels. I want to like 3D print him or something. I also wonder what he's so sad about. Like, get out of the dark room, dude. Go outside. This one was rough. I would venture to say that I liked this one the least. I'm not a big fan of how the hair treatment ended up looking either. The flyaways in the reference are not this thick, and I think I exaggerated their thickness just because I was rushing this one. I think it's all valuable though, because I was able to think about that retroactively and then fix that later on with different sculpts. So my lessons from this one are: rotate the model while you're sculpting on it. Pose the eyes before you pose the head. Think, but also don't think, and sculpt, but also don't sculpt. Listen to my advice, but also don't listen to it just in case I'm wrong. This one was interesting. This is one that I actually did not really like that much in the beginning, and then I liked how it ended up looking at the end. I didn't realize until later that this dude is actually an actor, so I probably butchered the actual likeness of him, but I think the sculpt itself and like the character of the picture is cool. I think I also chose something whose hero reference was a side view because after that last one I was really feeling unconfident about how my sculpts were looking from the side, so I wanted that to be sort of the main focus. Yeah, this one was fun too. He's very square looking, so I thought it'd be funny to use literal cubes to build him out. He had such a cool, interesting face that I think I stretched the bottom half of his face up into the top half, when really the lower half of his face only takes up maybe half of his head in the reference photo, which is something I fix a little bit later towards the end of the sculpt. He also has a little bit more of an underbite in hindsight than maybe what I captured. I really loved working with his forms though, and how a lot of like the folds kind of interweave and overlap each other. He feels like all of his features are very compact and like pressed in together. Really though, this is one of those ones that reminded me why I wanted to do 3D in the first place and how fun sculpting can be. Something that I fixed on this one directly because of the third sculpt was the way that I posed the eyes. I turned off mirrored symmetry and just fucking rotated them. I don't know why I didn't do that on hers, but you live and you learn, you know. As previously mentioned, I did do a little proportions pass at the end. That's something I usually do at the last second. Yeah, that's a bad habit. It's a little bit easier to check your reference when she's in the other room, so I can just run over there, check my proportions, and she's like, "What the fuck are you looking at?" And I'm like, "Don't worry about it." I think after the 6th or 7th head, you've kind of internalized a lot of things pretty well, so not much else to say. There's things that I like and don't like about this one, but I'm just gonna let the time lapse rip. For the final boss here, I decided for some reason to do Frodo, which I thought would be easy as a big Lord of the Rings fan, but it was not. There is nothing easy about this one. I think I spent like 1 to 2 hours on each one of these sculpts preceding this, and this guy ended up taking me a couple days to figure out. Most of the sculpts that I've been doing have had this small touch of stylization to it, and I initially tried to go for that with his likeness, but I realized pretty quickly I was going to need to be a lot more exact with proportions and the surface treatment to get the likeness that I was looking for. So on this one, I think I spent a few hours sculpting, and then I wasn't happy with how it looked, so I stopped for a while, took a break, showed it to a couple friends, got their opinions, then came back to it with some fresh eyes to do another pass. Ultimately, for me, what it came down to was the cheekbones and the eyes. That's sort of what was killing the likeness for me until I kind of figured it out. I think the biggest takeaway I've gotten from this experience is learning to utilize intention. Time is so limited, and especially as we get older and we have like more responsibilities, more shit to deal with in our life, you really need to be very intentional with the time that you spend. On most of the sculpts, my specific intention was just to make something and just to be there. As some of the sculpts go on, I'm focusing more on likeness, so in that case, that's my intention. As long as I achieve some percentage of that or keep working towards that, then it was all worth the time spent. I've spent months on projects before and then stopped working on them because I never set a specific enough intention and I didn't know where I was going with it. Many times I've worked on projects or made things because I thought that's what I should be doing or what I was supposed to be doing according to what other people were doing. And ultimately, a lot of the work produced with that mindset was lacking. Another valuable thing is just being kind to yourself when you go off the rails a little bit, because you inevitably will. I lose focus, I lose my intention, I lose my way, and then I readjust, I reassess, and then I just bring myself back to where I was before. You can see roughly around this point that I kind of lose the likeness a little bit. Sometimes you really just need to stop, walk away, and come back. This is after a little off-screen sculpting, getting some outside opinions, and just kind of taking a step away to be a little more objective about it. And then finally, the same exact shit, just like walk away, come back, do another pass, turn my brain off, and then suddenly I'm looking up and it's a little bit closer, in this case close enough. I personally got a lot of value from this thing that I decided to randomly do, so I wanted to share it. I'll probably continue to use this method in quotations, to focus on other things I want to get stronger, better at, like anatomy, cloth sculpting, and CG groom, to name a few. Anyway, all that to say, I hope you liked it. Let me know which ones you liked the best, and thank you for watching.